August 23, 1942. The German Sixth Army reaches the outskirts of Stalingrad. Hitler believes victory is within days. He has no idea he's about to lose an entire army. This is the story of the bloodiest battle in human history. Over 1 million casualties, the turning point of World War II, the graveyard of Hitler's ambitions, the Battle of Stalingrad. By June 1941, 3 million German soldiers had invaded the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa aimed to smash Stalin's regime before winter, and by December, they were at Moscow's gates. But the Red Army had stopped them. And Stalin's secret weapon, scorched earth, denied them victory. Forced to retreat, Hitler hoped a long, hot summer would prevent the Red Army from pursuing them. But the Germans soon learned their leader had misjudged Stalin. Again, as the snows melted, the Soviets advanced again. And by midsummer, the German lines were crumbling. A new plan was desperately needed. In late July, Hitler launched Case Blue, a massive offensive toward the Caucasus oil fields. Army Group B under Maximilian von Weichs was to advance south, while Army Group A under Karl List was to advance west, encircling the Caucasus like a pair of pliers. But on August, Hitler ordered List's forces to push forward to Stalingrad and turn the battle into a war of annihilation. This proved a fatal mistake. Why did Hitler order his generals to capture Stalingrad? Why did Stalin fight so hard to hold it? And how did both dictators make it personal? How does the story of the Battle of Stalingrad begin? In late August 1942, the German Sixth Army entered the city. It was commanded by veteran General Friedrich Paulus, who led 270,000 troops, mostly veterans of Poland, France, and early Russian campaigns. These were Hitler's elite troops, battle-hardened and supremely confident. Their mission, take the city in 2 days. Easy, before they charged. They unleashed a Luftwaffe barrage, the largest air raid since London. 800 bombers turned Stalingrad into a burning hellscape. In one day, 40,000 civilians died. But while the Luftwaffe decimated the city's defenders, enough survived to mount a defense. Defending Stalingrad was General Chukhov's 62nd Army. By mid-August, only 37,000 remained, outnumbered 3-1, low on supplies, but fighting for their homeland. They had nowhere to retreat. Hitler and Stalin had made it personal. Neither dictator would back down. The next 200 days would be a nightmare. As German tanks rumbled in, Soviet commanders directed their few remaining aircraft to attack. German advances slowed. On August 26, a reconnaissance plane spotted the first Soviet troops crossing the Don River and racing toward Stalingrad. Hitler decided the city could still be taken quickly. He ordered the Luftwaffe to destroy the incoming force, then press the attack. But the Red Army kept coming. And on September, the Germans faced a full-scale assault. Outnumbered and outgunned, Soviet troops fought house to house. But slowly, the tide began to turn. As the Germans reached the Volga River, they believed victory was within reach. Hitler ordered preparations for a victory parade. Stalin considered abandoning the city. The Soviets would regroup, mount a counterattack, and win the battle. But that was still months away. For now, the Germans had pushed the Red Army back across the Don and were advancing up the riverbank, racing toward the Volga. On September, German tanks broke through to the Volga River. Paulus radioed Berlin. Victory was certain. He'd be in Stalingrad for the parade. All that remained was to mop up the city, except they'd forgotten about how snow. 9. The 37,000 defenders of Stalingrad included Sergeant Pavlov's 30-man garrison. They held a 4-story apartment building for 58 days. The Nazis attacked dozens of times, but the Soviets repelled every assault. Then the Germans pulled back to the city's edge and started attacking from outside. Still, Pavlov and his men held out. They became symbols of Soviet resistance. They fought until relieved or killed. While the German army tightened its grip on Stalingrad, Soviet reinforcements arrived under cover of darkness. Night after night, Soviet boats crossed the Volga under German fire, bringing fresh troops, ammunition, supplies, and food. Stalin refused to abandon the city, bearing his name. Pavlov knew he was in trouble when he received orders to hold and destroy. The Red Army was coming. On November, Marshal Zhukov launched Operation Uranus, a massive double envelopment. 1 million Soviet troops would surround the entire German Sixth Army. Pavlov never saw it coming. On November 19th, Soviet forces smashed through the Romanian and Italian armies, protecting the German flanks. These allies lacked heavy weapons and winter equipment. They crumbled. That same day, Soviet troops met at Kalach. The Stalingrad cauldron was forming. Sixth Army was completely encircled. 290,000 German and Axis soldiers trapped inside, including 24,000 Italians, 21,000 Romanians, and only 88,000 Germans. Pavlov wanted to break out, but he was running out of time. The Germans were starving. Pavlov asked Reichsmarschall Göring for airlifts. He needed 700 tons daily to keep his troops alive, but the Luftwaffe never delivered more than 300. It was a death sentence. On December 12th, desperate to save his army, Manstein launched Operation Winter Storm. Panzer columns fought to within 30 miles of Stalingrad, but Pavlov wouldn't break out. He preferred to starve with his men. The relief failed. On Christmas Day, Soviet reserves smashed Manstein's relief effort. The last hope died. Pavlov had lost. Sixth Army must choose: surrender or starve. Hitler forbade surrender. The death spiral began. In January 1943, German rations dropped to 200 calories daily. Soldiers ate horses, dogs, leather boots, anything that would keep them alive. Typhus and dysentery spread. The once elite German army was disintegrating. Pavlov knew his men couldn't hold out much longer. Surrender seemed inevitable. But Hitler was watching. On January, he promoted Pavlov to Field Marshal, the highest rank in the German army. The message was clear: no German field marshal had ever surrendered. Pavlov should kill himself rather than capitulate. 5 days later, Pavlov awoke with a start. His orderly stood over him holding a pistol. Pavlov took the gun, walked onto his balcony, and fired a blank round into the air. He then handed the weapon to his orderly and walked back inside. Later that morning, he called the Soviet commander and offered surrender terms. At 8:30 a.m. on January 31, 1943, Pavlov and the remnants of the German Sixth Army surrendered. The myth of German invincibility died in Stalingrad's ruins. Hitler raged, but he could not change reality. The great German defeat had become a catastrophe. Of the 290,000 Axis soldiers encircled, only 91,000 survived to surrender. Of those, fewer than 6,000 would ever see home again. For the Soviets, the victory cost over 1.1 million casualties. Stalingrad had been a massacre. But one massacre can change history. Stalingrad marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. From this moment, the Wehrmacht was retreating. The initiative passed permanently to the Red Army, and the news of Stalingrad electrified the world. American lend-lease increased. British morale soared. The German allies began questioning Hitler's leadership. The alliance weakened. The result: Germany lost an entire army, its best generals, and hundreds of aircraft. In the end, Stalingrad proved that even the mightiest military machine can be stopped by determination, strategy, and sacrifice. It remains history's most decisive urban battle. What do you think? What was the turning point of World War II? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more epic historical tales.